Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday, August 25th. I have the house to myself tonight with these two wonderful dogs who are asleep right now, as long as Thrawn does not do anything stupid. But he has just been gassed ever since he came back from daycare just a couple days ago. Um, I guess that's what happens, when you're a 7-month-old puppy. But another action-packed show today. I have another update on the RoboPenguin situation because Icetetics, who have really good sources about jerseys, obviously they're one of the best websites out there for jerseys. They had an interesting scoop about the RoboPenguin jersey today, which I'll get to starting off for the show. Second segment, we're going to get into Ryan Poehling and if he's going to be the one that wins that final, forward roster spot, assuming the Penguins don't make any other moves before training camp. And then finally, we're going to get into Jeff Carter and what the big key for him should be to have a bounce back season last year. It feels weird to say that because he did score 18 goals, but that second half of the year, definitely not that good. So the big key for him, can he be more consistent, I guess? We'll get into that coming up for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of, the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguin. So let's get, right into some more RoboPenguin stuff because obviously this is one of the biggest topics on Penguins Twitter right now. So Icetetics, again, they have excellent sources when it comes to jerseys. In my opinion, they are the best out there. They have scoops all over the league. If they're reporting it, usually it does come to fruition. And they revealed some updates on some of those leaked colors and logo details for the reverse retro 2.0 jerseys. And in the video, the person that was running it said he has heard that the Penguins are going to be doing the RoboPenguin this year. So I will check that off as a one-for-one scoop. Hopefully it is officially announced at some point, either before training camp, during training camp, preseason, during the regular season, whatever. But he did say it sounds like it's going to have a gold gradient, or the jersey is going to be gold. If that is true, and I checked in with someone close to the team today, and he's heard that it's going to be black. So I'm not really too sure yet. But if it is gold, and the person I'm talking to is a bit wrong on that, I'm going to be a little disappointed. I don't think the RoboPenguin design looks good on a gold jersey, and I'm also just kind of tired of the all-out gold jerseys that this team has had over the years. Most of them have, they've not been that good. The home jersey right now, obviously that's awesome. There's a little bit of gold in it, but there's still, plenty of black in it as well. The away jersey is just terrific. The white and the gold and the black, it's just, I don't think there's a better one in the league. But remember those third jerseys that the Penguins wore in the playoffs just a couple of years ago against the Islanders, those all yellow paint jerseys, basically. And yeah, I know a lot of people made a big deal out of it in the playoffs. No, it had nothing to do with them losing, but it was still a jersey that, in my head, I was just kind of like, okay, not good, not terrible, but also just, I guess. And that's kind of how I would feel if the RoboPenguin logo is on, this one. And I'll potentially put the tweet in the comments. I wish I could figure out a way where I could, I actually do think I can share my screen here. So let me see if I can actually do that. Well, let's see here. I guess maybe, yes. Okay. We can do that here real quick. Okay. So you all see it. For those who are on the YouTube channel, you all see this, right? You come here. Let me make sure that it's on the thing. So yes, look at this right here. This is all this gold right here. You put that RoboPenguin logo on the middle of that, it is going to look so bad. It's just it's not going to look well at all. I'll stop sharing my screen here so you all don't have to see what I have open and all that. And there's nothing bad, of course. Don't worry. But it's just, I don't like it. I think if they were to, again, go to the all black, which I am going to pull up right here on my Twitter page. I'll share my screen again for you all here, those that watch on YouTube, if I can just do this. Okay. So right here, right? This is the jersey that you want. All black, the RoboPenguin looks perfect right in the middle of it. I know this is a design from Bar Down, but whatever. Black gloves, a nice little stripe, right by the elbows, the nice C at the top. That is the kind of jersey that I want coming back. Having it be a gold version, it's just going to look like piss. That's my opinion. I think, if you want to bring this legendary logo back, and it is really good, you got to do it right. And I think, with how people reacted to the first reverse retro jersey when they brought back the diagonal Pittsburgh, which was an all-white version, I thought that was okay. But a lot of people didn't like it. I don't think those same people will like this one. That's for sure. And also, I should say this. If it is gold and Icetetics gets this right, and chances are they probably will, just because of how good their sources are. Again, I don't ever claim to be an inside man. When I hear stuff though, I do try to put it out there. I've gotten some scoops right. Hopefully I don't get this one wrong. Hopefully it is all black. But I just wanted to say that as well. But again, when they had that white one, they came back the next year like, okay, we're going to bring back the OG version, right? So I'm really wondering if this one is an all gold version. Do they say, okay, we're going to do this for a year, excuse me, wear the jersey for 5 to 10 games? Because remember, they have to wear their home and away jersey select number of games, and they have to wear the Pittsburgh diagonal one 5 to 10 games or something like that. Could they scrap this one after this year and then say, okay, we're going to bring back the OG RoboPenguin jersey, or one of them, and just say, okay, here you all go. We didn't do it this past year because it was a reverse retro. Now we're going to give you the original one. And they could potentially wear 4 jerseys again next season, like they are going to this year. I know last season they wore home and away and then the Pittsburgh diagonal jerseys, but we'll have to see. But I definitely could see the team and the ownership group saying, yep, we're just going to do that just because, people are still going to buy it. But I think, they're going to get a lot more support if they bring back an OG version after the reverse retro one is up. But again, hopefully it is not a gold one. I'm actually rooting for Icetetics to be wrong based on what they're hearing, and hopefully that it is a black one. I'm sure, again, plenty of people are going to buy it, but we'll have to see just, what happens when it's announced. Is the big thing. Is it going to be camp, preseason, during the regular season? If it is during the regular season, it's probably going to be sometime early in the season. I should say that. So that wraps up this first segment of today's episode. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into, who has the inside track to win that final roster spot, for the Penguins as it stands right now. I basically teased it in the opening segment, but, I'm going to get into that and also look at some of the other options that the Penguins have available right now. But before I get to that, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check out on all of your betting needs. You can find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. You can head to BetOnline today or to use your phone to learn more about the trends in action. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's get into it here. So as the depth chart stands right now, this is my personal top 9, top 11. Jake Gensel at the top left wing, Sidney Crosby at center, Brian Russ at your right wing. They could always flip flop Raquel and Russ. I'm sure they probably will during the season. Raquel obviously had a great stint with Crosby after he was acquired after the trade deadline last year. I definitely they will revisit that at some point next season. Jason Zucker, Evgeny Malkin, Rickard Rakell on your second line. Danton Heinen, Jeff Carter, Kasperi Kapanen right now as your third line. I guess, Heinen, he can chip in goal scoring wise. If Kapanen bounces back, that's massive, though I'm not fully counting on that. And then if Carter can produce again and then be more consistent, which I'll get into a little later on, I think that has the makings of, I guess, a passable third line until they can potentially upgrade their forward group by the trade deadline. And then the fourth line, you have Teddy Blueger and Brock McGinn, and then a whole lot of options. Ryan Poehling, Josh Archibald, Radim Zohorna, Drew O'Connor, Nathan Legare, Drake Caggiula. I think those are the main players that are going to be in the mix for that final spot. But right now, I do think Ryan Poehling has the inside track for that job. I don't think the Penguins would have acquired him from the Canadiens if they didn't think that he had what it takes to make this team. I read from Danny Shirey just a couple of weeks ago that he thinks that Poehling could potentially get second power play minutes on the Penguins just because of how good he is in front of that. He had some nice video in that piece. That's definitely something I'm not fully supporting at this point in time. I think I kind of want to see how he does in bottom 6 minutes. But this is still a player, again, former first-round pick, just played 57 games for the Canadiens this past season. Not the best underlying numbers, 45% of the shot attempts per 60 minutes, 34% of the actual goals, 45% of the expected goals, 45% of the scoring chances, 47% of the high danger chances when he was on the ice for Montreal. I definitely think part of that has to do with playing on a really crappy team. But, it definitely looked like a bit of a reach of a pick at the time when he was drafted. And, it's shown that so far for his NHL career. Remember, it's funny. He actually had a hat trick in his NHL debut in the 2018-19 season. Played one game, 3 goals, and didn't play another game the rest of that season. 2019-20, played 27 games. I had 1 goal at 5v5 this past year. 6 goals, 8 total assists at 5v5 in 57 games. I think the best case scenario for him is at this point, and I'm kind of tempering my expectations a little bit. I think the best case scenario for him is maybe like a Brock McGinn type where he's scoring 10 to 12 goals a season for Pittsburgh. If you can get that up to 15, I think that would be solid. I don't know if he'll ever, touch what Carter did this past season with 18 goals, but I think anywhere, 10 to 12, maybe up to 15. I think that's the most you're going to get out of him. I've seen some people say that he should be in the top 6. I definitely disagree with that. The Penguins have plenty of other options at this point in the top 6 who are a lot better than Poehling. I'm just, I'm not as high on him as others are. I will gladly, openly admit that. I think that at the time he was kind of just a throw-in to the Petrie trade, even though the Penguins, they definitely do like him. They like the size that he brings, the shot that he has. He can play center, he can play wing. If the Penguins do have a center injury, say Teddy Blueger, Jeff Carter, God forbid, if getting Malkin or Sidney Crosby get hurt during the year, they can probably just switch Poehling to center, and he can anchor the third or fourth lines or something like that. So that's the versatility in him. I think definitely intrigued the front office in that deal. And I think that they're hoping to, turn his development around just because, he is still, quite a young player, still in his, I'm making sure I get this right here, he's still only 23 years old. Those are usually considered the peak years of your career. So he has time, turn it around here. It's all a matter of, can the Penguins get more value out of him than the Canadiens did? And, as for someone that could potentially, take his spot if Poehling does not win it in camp, in my opinion, I think Drew O'Connor is going to make this team, whether it's in Poehling's spot, whether it's as a 13th forward. I do think when that final roster is finalized after training camp, after the preseason, when it's probably going to be 13 forwards, 8D, and 2 goalies, I think O'Connor is going to be on that team. It's make it or break it time for him. Played well in a short stint with the Penguins last year. It's really now or never for him at this stage in his development. He needs to show the team that he can, put the puck in the back of the net, that he can continue to skate, play well defensively. He'll be getting third, more likely fourth line minutes because, they're all battling for that final spot. But, I do think that O'Connor, he really needs to show what he's made of. Because again, I'll say this for the 500th time of the offseason and during the season last year, he showed a lot of flashes when he was on the team. Last year, it was unfortunate that his season was derailed by an injury, but it's a fresh slate now. If he's fully healthy going into camp, I think he has something to prove. But right now, I think Poehling has the inside track to get that final roster spot, assuming the Penguins do not make a trade. And I think right behind him on his tail is O'Connor. Following that, I would say, a group of Archibald, Zahorna, Drake Caggiula. He's had decent underlings throughout his career, even though he only played in 18 games. For the Oilers last year. Nathan Legare, I think he could potentially make a play for that. Philip Hollander, Alex Nylander, Sam Poulin. That's like, I guess, that third or that second or third or fourth group, after, the main ones of Poehling and O'Connor and some of those guys. Again, I mainly think Poehling is just going to get a lot of 5v5 minutes next season. I said it a few minutes ago. I don't think it's too wise to put him on the power play. I think they have plenty of other players they can put on the second power play unit. Like for example, obviously you have Gensel, Crosby, Malkin, Rust, and Letang on your top power play. But you can put Ricard Raquel, Jason Zucker, Jeff Petrie, Kasperi Kapanen, and probably Jeff Carter on that second unit. I would probably trust Carter over Poehling at the moment. On the second power play, that's me though. That's just my opinion. But I think the Penguins have, enough capable guys to fill that second unit where they don't have to reach down and put Poehling, I think, on that unit, and Teddy Blueger and Brock McGinn, and those guys. So that wraps up the second segment of today's episode. Coming up in the final segment, we're going to get into Jeff Carter, where I see him playing next season. Should he be at center? Could he potentially move to wing? And, what needs to happen so that he can just be more consistent overall next season? So that's all coming up right after this commercial break. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @LRStorePenguins. And, of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So, as of right now, he's probably the team's third line center, Jeff Carter. That is, I don't think Teddy Blueger has done anything to, move up the depth chart, at least, in the playoffs last year. And during the regular season, I know this is a big year for Teddy just because it's a contract year. I think the team is a bit more down on him than they would admit. At least that's, whispers from what I've heard and stuff. But, I think Carter needs to have a pretty big year this year too. This is the first year of his 2-year extension that Hextall signed him to during the middle of last season, a deal that, looked fine at the time because Carter was actually producing and playing well. But, the second half of the season happened and he played like total dog water, as the kids like to say. I think a big thing for Carter next season is making sure he doesn't, he's not, in an elevated role, I should say, just for a lot of that season, because, last season, Crosby and Malkin are out to start the year. Sid, I know, comes back after the first couple of weeks, but, Carter was this team's first line center for the first handful of games. That is going to, take a toll on you as the season goes on. And even when Sid came back, Carter was still the team's second line center. That's even going to take a toll on someone who's getting close to 40 years old at this point in his career. But, if he's playing on the third line center like he did when he came over from the Kings in 2020, 2021, you saw what happened. He was ridiculously good. He wrote a very high shooting percentage. His underlying numbers were fantastic, and he was able to stay consistent and make quite the impact with the Penguins. And in the first half last year, he was more fresh. He was, scoring, producing offense outside of that, playing well in his own zone. But after that, when, the mileage really started, to just rack up throughout the season, the results, they waned. And he looked washed. He looked gassed every night. For some reason, Mike Sullivan decided to put him on the ice in a pivotal moment in Game 5 against the Rangers when Crosby went out to that Jacob Trouba hit. I believe that it was the maybe it was the 3-2 goal from, I believe it was actually Trouba that scored that goal. And Sullivan quickly adjusted that. Penguins go down and tie the game just a couple seconds later with Malkin and Gentz on the same line. But, again, I touched on that at the time. It was just a really stupid blunder from Sully. I think he was just trusting Carter too much at that point, and, he just didn't deserve those kind of minutes. But, if you can limit his ice time to, 12, 13 minutes a game, maybe even anything I think lower than 15, I think you're doing fine. But, when he's playing 16, 17, upwards of 20 minutes a night, that's just, that's not going to fly here. I will say that. It's just, it's not good enough. And as you saw, throughout the season, the numbers, they regressed. When he was on the ice last season, the Penguins had only 47% of the shot attempts per 60, 43% of the actual goals for, 48% of the scoring chances, 48% of the high danger chances, and 43% of the high danger goals for. His underlyings tanked last season as it all went on. Not good enough. It's unacceptable, especially for someone that just got an extension. And, maybe you can chalk that up to line mates, but I think most of it is due to him just, playing at the level that he played with when he was with the Kings during 2020, 2021, when, he played 40 games for them that year. And when he was on the ice, the Kings had 49% of the shot attempts. They had a split 50-50 in actual goals for. They had 46% of the scoring chances and 48% of the high danger chances. Very similar numbers to what you saw last season with the Penguins. He just went on a nice heater when he got traded over to the Penguins, carried over to the first half of last year, and then it reverted back to what he was doing in the first half of last year. And again, if you can cut down that ice time, give him reliable players that can help him produce, like a Danton Heinen, who scored 18 last year. Maybe if Kapanen bounces back, that could be a big help. I think he can be a better player for them next season. Maybe you can take him off the penalty kill. It's tough because I do like him as a penalty killer, but I'm not sure he, is deserving of, the big minutes on that unit, at least for me. I think, if you look at the depth chart right now, Letang, he's really good at killing penalties. I think, Bluger, when he's in his element, he's great at killing penalties. Brock, usually he's one of their best penalty killers. I would put Kasperi Kapanen on that top penalty kill unit. That might be a bit of a hot take, but he was really good at it when he was in Toronto. I know he played on the second unit, but his numbers were pretty legit. I would try him out there and see how he does. But that's just me, though. But you can also rotate your defenseman. You can maybe put Petrie on there as well. I know Trevor Riedl's killed penalties. Brian Dumoulin, obviously, is one of their best penalty-killing defensemen. You have plenty of options there that don't involve Carr. I think if you mainly just stick to him, playing at 5v5, playing on the second power play unit, and giving him 12, 15 minutes a night, I think you're going to see better results, or the Penguins hope that they should see better results, and you're not going to see him just being a drag, whether it's in the offensive or the defensive zone. I would keep him at third line center for now, but if those numbers start to dwindle even more, I would really much consider moving him to wing, or honestly moving down to the fourth line center and then elevating Teddy Bluger if he does play well. So those are my thoughts on the entire Jeff Carter situation and what the Penguins should do with him, and how he can potentially bounce back next season after a disastrous second half of the year. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow, which is Friday, and then next week we'll have 3 more, and we will welcome in September, which means it is training camp month, and I am so stoked to be, just get closer to talking about, real Penguins updates and just practices, and then eventually games, which is scheduled to happen in about a month and a half at this point. So keep it right here on Locked On Penguins for everything Pittsburgh Penguins related. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. I'll talk to you all on Friday.